Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and y'all know me as the urban translator. I'm also the host of the Bradley Report. I'm the president of United in Peace, Inc. This show that we bring it to you today is very important and very significant because, as you know, this is Black History Month. But before I get too far into the show, I want to let all my listening audience know that this show is brought to you because of the research done by the chairman of United Peace, Inc., none other than my wife, Terry Marsh. We're talking about the continuing corporate synthetic or systemic, I got to get that word, continued racism to make sure that a Black man or a Black woman can get their fair share in this franchise thing, okay? Corporate systemic racism in McDonald's. On the show today, it's two brothers, Jim Byrd, Darrell Byrd. They're part of a suit that's involving probably 75 other McDonald's franchisees, and it's against McDonald's, okay? And we got brother Kahari Nash, okay? Each one of them gonna introduce themselves to you, since you know who I am. I'm gonna start with brother Kahari. Could you let the viewing audience know who you are?
Yeah, I'm Kahari Nash. I'm the founder, chairman, president, and CEO of KCM Group Limited.
Okay. Brother Jim.
Hi there, Jim Byrd. I am a McDonald's franchise in Memphis. Glad to be here today. Thank you.
Okay. And the short brother, the little brother up top, the one I call the Bird number two. This brother Darrell. Introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Darrell Byrd. I'm an owner-operator, originally from Detroit, Michigan, but I live in Memphis, Tennessee, where I own two restaurants, two McDonald's franchises, and really honored to be on your show. Thank you for what you're doing to put the information out there where it needs to be.
Okay. You know, we had a protest on February 22nd. And it was the first day of a 90-day Don't Be Fooled educational protest against systemic racism in McDonald's. So I want to start this off with brother Kahari. Can you give a breakdown of the purpose of the 90-day protest that started on February 22nd in front of McDonald's global corporate office here in Chicago?
The protest was
Brother Kahari, yeah.
Yeah, the protest was to educate the Black community on the class action Byrd et al. Versus McDonald et al. And the 77 individual lawsuits filed, Crawford et al. Versus McDonald et al. So that the world can know what was going on with McDonald's and the systematic racism, and to educate the people on what we're asking of McDonald's. As you know what I mean, we're asking for damages, but we're also asking for programmatic changes to break the systematic racism cycle that has been going on in McDonald's, and it's also going on in corporate America as a whole and on Wall Street.
Okay, brother Darrell.
Yes, sir.
You know, you the one that threw that powerful fist up at McDonald's. They thought you was gonna throw a rock up at the window. Could you explain what all you realized when the people came out, the various activists from around the city, the grassroots activists,
That's a great question, and I'm really happy that you asked me that because I think it was a very, I would say, an awakening for me. Um, it almost took me back to all of the books that I read, and I thought back to our forefathers that were out there toiling away in those cotton fields for free and building what has become undoubtedly the greatest nation in the history of the world, America, built on our labor for free. And though I'm being compensated for what I do with McDonald's, when I looked at that building to see this tremendous edifice that we had a chance to construct with our money, our hard labor, with our stores, with me being in there, opening at breakfast, working those lunches, making sure that we're staffed, making sure that I'm watching all the costs, keeping all the bills paid, keeping our people trained and certified. And I look to see what we've done and what we've built. And we are the largest quick service restaurant in the world. And I have a part of that. And I look at the amount of money that we bring in. And it's wonderful just to know that we're impacting the world like that. But when I look at myself as a Black man in America, and I look at the portion that is relegated to me, and when I look at the percentages and realize they're less than 2%, even 1 point, I'm embarrassed to say they are so low that it's almost as though it's a pittance. And so it made me feel humbled to see people actually come out, people that I've heard of and respected like yourself, but to see the overwhelming support from the activists, the overwhelming passion, I mean, just pure passion, because they were concerned that an African-American businessman that is a franchisee in the largest quick service restaurant in the world decided to stand out here and ask, why am I being charged a higher fee to be in the same business as my white counterparts? Now, I'm not doing anything different or selling anything different. It's just the fact that I am African American, and that's very painful.
You know,
It was a painful.
Jim,
Yes.
what gets me, I know the sacrifice that you and your brother are doing for a lot of other franchisees and former franchisees that are afraid to come forth and say anything about what McDonald's is doing to them. I know you guys got 75 other McDonald's that's signed on to this class action, but could you expound on to me how some of the things that a lot of the McDonald's that has been pushed out, you know what I mean?
I do, and
Explain that to me.
Yeah, I will, and thank you for allowing me to have a few words. The I guess the impetus for me to really, and for us to really move forward, was around February. There was a lawsuit by two executive dynamic Black females that left McDonald's, and they filed a lawsuit. As we began to read and look at that lawsuit, and you begin to compare some numbers and research that we were doing ourselves, and you combine that with watching George Floyd die because he had a knee on his neck. And I began to look at the movement that went around the country, and young people, and they're sick and tired. And we began to look at, just in our own sphere of McDonald's, why are we still fighting in 2020 when it really started, trying to just get to a level playing field? And I began to ask myself, if not now, when? And there's a number of people who have talked about it. And when you start to look back on the progress we made in America, and then you begin to look at the shoulders that we stand on, the brothers and sisters over the years who have gone through so much, so very much to help us get to where we are. It became important and imperative to my brother and I and others that we take a stand. And we're a little older, and our forefathers stood up for us. And now we're trying to stand up for those who won't, can't, and will as we move forward. So we're just really trying to do some good and know that it's our time to make a difference. And if not us, who? And
Right.
so we're not asking the question anymore. If not now, when is now? And
Right.
and we are the who
Right.
that will get others to join and to battle with us.
Right. You know, as you were saying that Monday, I didn't realize that if you spell now backwards, it's spelled one. You know, WON.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now time for us to one. You know, I'm urban translator. Some people might say win. So now it's time for us to one because it's now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I was talking to Kahari yesterday, and in Chicago, Cirillo McSwede is legendary. I know he's legendary to everybody that knows Cirillo McSwede, the Panamanian track star, the financial man that helped Martin Luther King, Reverend Jackson, you name them all, too. Great man.
Yes.
But he had two McDonald's. And even though I was walking past there, the McDonald's are still there, one on State and one on, I think it was on 22nd and something in King Drive. I never thought to ask if it was still owned by Cirillo McSween's family because I know he has deceased. Then I read this article in Fortune magazine where they had my friend, you know, my family know him very well. I know him very well. Brother Rogers, who's on the board of McDonald's. And when you guys filed your suit in September, in my opinion, all of a sudden you saw where McDonald's started pushing all the various African Americans that's tied in or who they brought on board or who's with McDonald's. I know he's been on the board for years. But when they went and hired Miss Lynch, the black attorney, because of your suit, then they do the Fortune story because of your suit, because that was mentioned in the story.
Right.
But one of the things I read, as he was saying, all the wonderful things that McDonald's has done, and he made mention about Cirillo McSwede. He made mention about the Fifth Ward Alderman's father owning a McDonald's. He made mention of the black-owned McDonald's that was in Navy Pier and I think in McCormick Place. So as the story was out, you know, we that have an opinion can put it up on Facebook and then give our comments. My question was this. I don't know if you guys know, but I want my viewing audience to know during this Black history. They're asking questions during Black history is culturally wise, or they will erase our history. Now, and the question I asked him is those restaurants still owned by someone black? If not, who own them? And why is it that they no longer own them? You know, because one of you birds or somebody enlighten me? What if you may know anything about the other black McDonald's across the country, including the one in Chicago, that's they
Let
may
me,
have been pushed out?
yeah, let me try to answer your question. I'm not sure about Cirillo's exact situation as it's unfolded, but I will know. But one thing I do know is I talked to a wise brother actually a little bit ago, and he said, in response to your question about our member of the board of directors who came out, in his life, he said that he would never check out of being black. And that's very, very powerful during Black History Month. Sometimes you can never forget where you came from.
Right.
And our job is to make sure that we represent when we do get in the door and not try to downplay, pacify, or, as they say, blackwash a situation. There's a brother that I remember, and I believe this, is we don't want to hurt the goose that laid the golden egg. Brother Reggie Webb out in California, he's a black McDonald operator as well. And he said, we don't want to hurt the goose that laid the golden egg. We just want some more eggs. And on top of the more eggs, we want to catch up on the eggs we didn't get.
You know, Brother Kahari, at the rally and educational protest that we had on the 22nd, you ran down some numbers that caught a lot of the young activists' mind. And they was like, wow, they weren't even aware that that was happening. They wasn't aware that 30% of McDonald's gross receipts, I think it is, came from African-American community. They wasn't fully aware of how the white McDonald owners had more of a benefit over the African-American McDonald's. A lot of them thought that McDonald's franchises were equal under the law. So can you give me the span? Because you, Brother Kahari, you the numbers, man.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm so 30% of McDonald's gross sales comes from the black community, but that 30% is not being represented across the black advertising firms, black philanthropic organizations, as far as black suppliers within McDonald's, and it's not being represented as black franchisees. And 60% of the labor force, the McDonald's employees that work in these stores are black. So, you know what I mean? It's a disproportionate equity ratio. I don't know what, I ain't looked at the stock today, but yesterday, McDonald's, market capitalization was about $165 billion. And the MBMOA represents about gross sales about 2.5 billion, and it just that's around 1.5% of the market capitalization of McDonald's, and it's not the $6.5 billion in gross sales that we should represent based on the 30% of McDonald's gross sales. So you can see that there's like a $3 billion gap between what we should actually be, representing as far as the MBMOA versus what all the franchisees represent.
On that note, you have made mention, and media have became aware, and that's why they were into the story, because it was almost like they were a fly on the wall if there was a meeting between you guys and the CEO of McDonald's. I'm saying that to say this. In the piece, you guys broke down the problematic thing with McDonald's and franchisees and with suppliers and all of that. And what you have presented, in my opinion, it was here's the problem, here's what can be done, and here is what the solution would be. Now, anyone of you guys want to expound on that?
Well, I know Kahari has some numbers, but I did want to just mention with McDonald's, even though you see this huge corporation, you see all of these restaurants, we're really just independent business people, kind of like a mom and pop shop. We're responsible for basically everything in that store. So when you get a restaurant, one of the most important aspect of that restaurant is the deal from the very beginning. So the deal that you strike in the very beginning has a great deal to do with your cash flow ongoing, with the amount of money that you're able to make. So just to give you an example, my brother has a restaurant, and say I have a restaurant. We both have restaurants that are both McDonald's restaurants, both built the same year. And just say, for instance, I'm Black and my brother were white. We get a store and we have the exact same store. And then you have payments on that store, of course, just like a house note or rent, perhaps. My payment, say, for instance, is going to be $20,000 a month. Now, him and I have the same store, same kind, same everything. His payment, because he's white, is going to be maybe $12,000 a month. Now, why that is, but as we've extrapolated these numbers, that is the fact. With Black McDonald's operators are charged more in rent than their white McDonald's operators. And that's a problem right away, because from a number of reasons. Number one, less sales, less cash flow, less money to reinvest into your business with, less money to pass down to your children, and then less of a legacy that you leave for the next generation. So it hits 5 points. Just that first deal and the way that deal is structured, and by me as a Black operator not having the fair opportunity, I hit 5 areas that really affect my ability to pass on a legacy to my children. And unless we're able to pass these legacies on of not only education and knowledge, but able to pass these businesses on to our children and let these businesses continue to generate cash and capital for our families, we're having a difficult time transferring wealth to our younger Black people.
Let me say this, Gator. That the meeting that you was talking about that was supposedly scheduled with Chris Kempinski, the CEO of McDonald's. We didn't have that meeting, and that meeting was never. That meeting was set, but it was canceled.
Right. You explain
why it was canceled. I don't know, but I do know that it was canceled, and we you know what I mean, we still stand ready and willing to meet. But first of all, there has to be a meeting, and there has to be an objective for this meeting, and that objective should be for them to come to the table with an adequate settlement and to implement the programmatic changes that we, presented with, from top to bottom. And in order for them to do right by the Byrds and the former 77, they got to implement a growth mechanism. And the only way you can achieve growth is by capital, money. And if they're willing to show that they are committed to these diversity, equity, and inclusion, the goals and all that they have portrayed, and all of this is because of the lawsuits. And if they're there, then let them put the $500 million in the fund that's managed by Black investment banks and CFIs and MDIs, and let them show the world that they willing to not just putting lip service, they putting their money where their mouth is.
Right. You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm seeing it from a business perspective. win, lose, or draw, if I'm McDonald's, that you are asking for is minuscule because it would be a business write-off of doing business.
No. It'll be a business right on.
You know, it'll be a business write-off for us.
No. It'll be a business right on. They'll be right on for doing the right thing.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. It'll be a business write-on for the African American franchisees, the suppliers, and all that. But business-wise, if I'm McDonald's, I can say I had to do this, so it would be right on for the community, as I'm saying that I really care. Forget those fancy words, diversity, minority, we talking black. All that diversity and equality, it don't work because it's not a person, place, or thing. Okay? That you just explained.
The other thing, let me take you a little further, right? The other thing is that they say they find challenges in making this settlement with the Byrds and the 77 former Black McDonald's franchisees because they got to report that in their 10K. So my answer to them was buy the annuity.
Right. Right. Hey, repeat that again, man.
They can buy an annuity and pay the money out over 20, 25, 30 years.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That is business sense that I know that they are aware of, and because they don't want to do that, it makes it where they are greedy. You agree?
One of the things I like to put on the table, just a straight business thing, and I misspoke the other day at the rally because I got a little hyped, but the average sales of a white-owned store is $900,000 more than a black-owned store across the country, which is unconscionable. So 2.9 million for the average white, average black 2 million. That's one thing. The other thing is there were 370-ish operators at one point at the high. And right now that number has dwindled down to less than 180. And that is unconscionable as well. McDonald's Corporation has grown over the years and we have not grown. We've actually gone backwards. And that's a concern. So you add the numbers, you add the sales gap, you add the cash flow gap. And we talked about in Memphis, the region we're in, it's $140,000 in your pocket difference, white-owned versus black-owned stores. And I was just on a Zoom call to talk about that and got it confirmed, but it's still a gap. So here we are in 2021, still talking about trying to get equal, not exceed, just be equal. Unbelievable. I
got a question. That you just shared without listening to viewing audience, I'm sure the board members and the shareholders are aware of this. Would you say?
I would think on a personal level with the business acumen and the all the research people and the access to consultants and things. Yes.
Right. And this is what I want to say. I'm not jumping on the African Americans that's there, that's around, the few that's there. I want to make that perfectly clear. I ain't kicking you in the head because you can't make the decision that the CEO can make. But at what price trying to do what's right that people have sacrificed for the few African Americans that are franchisees, that are board members, that are shareholders, where they will be quiet and not share with McDonald's that, hey man, you got a leaky faucet. You need to fix this leak. You know what I mean? And any one of y'all help me understand that. You know what I mean? Because they had me tossing and turning last night. You know, I do know.
Well, the leaky faucet belongs to the owner, and the
That's what I'm
owner
saying.
and the
But
owner is McDonald's. And
right,
McDonald's need to call the plumber and tell the
right,
plumber they need to fix the infrastructure in their structure,
right,
because the structure is systematically flawed.
right. That's you know, Kahari, that's what I was saying. Now, if I'm a shareholder and I got knowledge of this leak, it's incumbent on me to let McDonald's know that, hey, dude, you got to fix that leak because the money that I've invested in buying the shares in this company is depreciating because what ain't right is going to be exposed and it's going to cost me. And if I'm a board member, it's encompassing upon me, black, white, Hispanic, man, woman, transgender, whatever it is. If you're a board member, if you really care about McDonald's being right, I would feel it's encompassing on you to say, hey, Mac, there's a leak that can be fixed.
I'm glad you said that, because the shareholders, if they don't push the corporation to do the right thing, that means that they are complicit
That's what
with
I'm
what
saying.
the corporation is doing, which means that they have exposed themselves to litigation.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we having this conversation that can be recorded and played out, because what we're doing is educating the people. What I mean by that, when the Capitol was attacked on January the 6th, it was the children that saw their parents attacking the Capitol. And the children said, wait, Mom, you told me it was wrong.
One of them was a white McDonald operator from Kansas City, Kansas.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, check this out. You can rest assured that individual probably told their children, don't be with Black Lives Matter movement. That's what I'm getting at.
And he posted it on his Facebook page.
Man.
He was proud of it.
Right. Well, hey, that's a part. That'll be the next lesson for day 4 of this 90-day protest. A lot of people have been asking me what we're going to do next. And you know, Kahari, I kind of want them to see what we do next as opposed to telling them what we're going to do. We got 90 days to show them what we doing to educate the people instead of telling them what we going to do so they can try to block what we doing. What do you think about that?
I think that's a good strategy. I think that right now they worried because they don't know what we're gonna do next. So
Yeah.
let's just give them a little time to keep thinking and wondering and tossing and turning and trying to figure out what we gonna do next. But very rest assured, we gonna do something big. We're gonna be bold, and we're gonna be very visionary in what we do next.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, well, hey, it's about that time, but we must be having fun because you know time flying. But boy, one thing I say is my understanding, and I want my viewing audience to know, and you brothers that's McDonald's franchisees, and brother Kahari, you know about that stock thing and all that because you be watching that. When is the shareholder meeting for McDonald's? Don't they got a meeting coming up because the quarter is almost over, about to start, ain't it?
March.
Yeah,
March. I'll get you the exact date for the board member
Okay. Okay. Hey, I know you guys are busy. One thing I can share with my viewing audience, during this 90 days, this is day number 3. I can tell y'all that it's a tour that's happening, letting the people know around the world that McDonald's got to get right, because no longer will we be Mac food. That's FOOLED. Because we got verifiable, documented facts. And with that, I want to say, hey, man, I appreciate y'all. Because, you know, I'm just now learning about this Zoom. You know, I just dance to that song. Ooh, Zoom, yeah, you know. But I want to say I appreciate y'all helping me to educate our people so that they may have a friend or a relative that's a stockholder of McDonald's to inform them in case they didn't know what the Mac is doing. And with that, I want to say, to God be the glory. That's our story. And don't be Mac food. Hey, and wherever you go, wear your mask. Or be a GOAT, the greatest of all time. And when the shot comes, don't be afraid to take that shot. You be a good player. Have a nice one. Peace.
Thank you.